Our best vibrations, so all of us will have our open hearts and open minds to understand this lesson, and the most important, to practice them in our daily lives, so everybody will benefit from this word. Thank you, Andre.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our Spiritist Center. Thank you for being here tonight. You guys know already who's been here, who's been coming, that every first Tuesday we have a talk, and each month it's one of us. We have Fernanda, we have Marcelo, and as we develop, as we put effort on putting this material together, as we work, and we see you guys coming to see it, that's good for everybody. We learn, you learn, and we grow together, right? Okay, so thank you for coming, and just to let you guys know, if you want to stop me and ask a question, I'm okay with that. If I think it's taking a little too long, I may rush a little bit, or just say, okay, we're moving next. Otherwise, that's okay if you ask questions. A good thing about those talks that we've been having is that we have the freedom to choose what we want to talk about. And when approached my time, actually about 2 months ago, okay, in September is going to be my turn, what am I going to talk about? And I was looking on the book, like what I was thinking, oh, okay, I got it. And then I asked, okay, but why am I going to talk about him? So, the first word that comes to me when I'm going to talk about him is the following word, hope. Let's think about what's happening nowadays in the world, and some of the things that we may think, okay, we are going south, we are going down, it's horrible. It's not exactly nice to talk about other religions or things that are happening that are not people that don't share the same faith that we do. They may not even be Christians or things like this. Everywhere where we go, there are extremists. Everywhere where we go, even on soccer, on the audience, you have hate. You have extremists. You go to the movies, you see that even more. So, what we see now is a certain group of extremists that they kill, they invade, they even crucify people in the Middle East, according to them, in the name of God. Doesn't that sound horrible?
Yes.
And usually we associate those with some extremist Muslims, right? And you may think, oh, maybe their religion tell them to do that, the holy war, the jihad. Not quite. It's all a matter of interpretation. Okay, we are on the year 2000. Let's go back 800 years ago. 800 years ago, the same thing, or even worse than some of the extremists are doing now, we Christians, we were doing. For whatever reason, we read the gospel and we understood that, oh yeah, that's right, we have to kill the infidels. Pretty much just like the extremists are doing nowadays. And well, we came a long way in 800 years. There's still religious intolerance here and there. You see the problem that happens between Catholics and Protestants in the UK and some other places, but overall, it's a huge progress next to what happened before. We know that nothing happened on this planet just by chance. Like, God's just up there, just watching. Okay, I guess I'm gonna put my tokens here that Germany is gonna win. You know, not quite. You know, everything that is happening has a purpose. We are not just floating around. So, when things got really nasty and Jesus' message was really going in a way that, okay, we're gonna lose it, that came the time that, okay, we're gonna solve that. So we're gonna see why this guy was so important for us to be here today talking about Christianity in general, or even about Spiritism. To start, I'm going to read a message that Joana de Angelis wrote about Francis of Assisi. The translation that I put here, they are not that good, just because usually in Portuguese, those writers, they are very good writers, and in English, and basically the basic English. So basically, finally, Francisco, which is Francis of Assisi, is the brother of Jesus, like any other one, identified himself with such great affinity. And we're gonna see throughout the slides tonight why Joana de Angelis was able to say that to Divaldo Pereira Franco. When did she say that? At the tomb of Francis of Assisi. So Divaldo went there actually a couple of times, where it's believed to the place that is believed to still have the remains of Francis of Assisi. And according to Divaldo, whenever he's there, he receives messages from Joana de Angelis. He receives messages from Anthony of Padua and several other spirits, because he's Divaldo, so his his radar is always open, so he receives everything. And while I was doing the research to get all this material together, it's amazing how much energy, how much things we receive from Francis of Assisi and some of the people that work with him. So tonight, I'm going to try to answer the following questions. Who was him? What did he do? What is his legacy? If you heard about Franciscans or the Franciscanos, we understand a little bit more how they came aboard and what they do. And who was St. Clare, Santa Clara, and San Antonio, which is right now, and what they have to do with Francis of Assisi. Why is he still remembered? So even within the Christianity, where we have some intolerance, everybody respects Francis of Assisi. Some of the evangelicals, they don't believe in saints. Some of the more radicals, they say, no, it's only Jesus. But they respect a lot Francis of Assisi by his work. And we understand why that happens. And what's the Spiritist view of him? What, important names about the Spiritists, what they say about him. And at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about, have you ever guys heard the prayer of Saint Francis? It's very beautiful. We're going to talk a little bit about that prayer. There's a book, was written by Leonard Duboff, which is basically only about each one of the sentences of the prayer. If you read that, at the end you say, okay, I'm nothing, I should reset and start all over, because it proves that you don't do anything reading there. That's not what I want to do. But basically, if we read that and we think about everything that is in there, we can improve our lives and everyone's around us quite a lot. So those are the questions that I'm going to answer tonight. And it always starts, and I ask him to make me an instrument of your peace. That's pretty much how it all starts. So just a show of hands here. Does anybody know a little bit about the life of Francis of Assisi? No? Okay. Okay, so we got one hand. So what I try to show on this slide here is basically the Crusades. You guys may have seen already some of the Middle Ages shows where you have the knights, and they have the sword, and they have the armors, and they're all, I forgot exactly the name of the clothes, all in iron that they wear. How did that happen? Actually, that was, all these knights, they were the warriors of the Crusaders. What the Crusaders were doing, basically, the Pope Innocencio first decided that the infidels were taking care of the Holy Land. Basically, Palestine was, again Palestine, just like today, they were in the hands of the Muslims. So, on the Pope's point of view, it was in the hands of the infidels. There are several analyses on why he decided to do that, including political. He wanted to send some people to die in a war, so the Pope needed to invent some war to put some kings, on the front line or things like this. But basically the explanation was, God wants us to go back and retrieve the Holy Land, the Saint Graal, and where Jesus has been buried, back to the Christians. It cannot be in the hands of the Muslims. So they decided to go and attack it. And was the first holy war ever restored. Was, designed by the Christians. And there were about a dozen crusades. So by the time those things happened, let's try to go back to Jesus. He said, okay, there are two things that you have to do. Love God above everything and love your neighbor
As you love yourself.
pretty much. So, okay, I'm gonna go kill infidels because they live someplace that, that was way too far already from what was supposed to be. And that was the time that when we go further, we're gonna see they looking for up there from upstairs and say, okay, no, this doesn't look good. We gotta solve that. So by that time, pretty much that's what people were doing. They were always cheering. They were afraid of the church. If you guys ever heard of the Inquisition, or like the Holy Inquisition, the Inquisition was basically the church judging people and burning people according to their sins. Not only that, they were selling forgiveness. Okay, you did this sin. If you pay me that amount, I forgive you, and Jesus forgives you. If someone dies, you could pay the church. They will pray for that person, so that person will stay on the purgatory, depending on how much you pay the church, and then say. And people were believing it. We were believing it. We as Spiritists, you cannot say that they were doing that, right? We could pretty much be doing that. Okay, so things were getting really ugly. In Europe, that was the heart of the Christianity. The Pope had a huge power over the kings. They would appoint kings and everything. He was way more political than anything else. And it was the time where the church was extremely rich. All the people, everybody needed to pay tribute to the church. They needed to pay taxes and everything to the church. So you see gold everywhere. Important to understand that they were really rich. So there was this gentleman called Pietro di Bernardoni in Italy, in the area called Umbria, and he was married to Mrs. Pica, and she got pregnant and had a son. And of course, I'm a father, I have a son, and whenever my son does something like he's playing soccer, I like soccer, yes, good. So I want him to become, I have an idea what I want him to become. Not necessarily I'm gonna make him become that, but back in the day it wasn't like that. So Pietro wanted his young son to be as successful as Pietro was. He was on the area of silk, and he was really prosperous, really rich, and his son was Francis. Actually, that's some of the interesting things. He was born Giovanni, which is equivalent to John in English, and that was his name that was restored like Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardoni. But his father decided to call him Francesco, in part because they had some ties to the French people, but according to some books, most of the money from his father came doing business with the Frenchmen. So, he wanted his son, in a way, to also have this legacy, so he called him Francesco, but his original name was John. And you're going to see how interesting that was. So, he was very young. He joined the military. He fought a battle in Perugia. And when coming back from of these battles, he got measles. I wrote here in Portuguese, but he got measles. And during that time, that's when it's believed that he started rethinking something, because he had to be isolated from everybody. So he started rethinking a lot of things in his life, but he always had a special attraction for religion. We're not talking about God, we're talking about Jesus only, but he always had a special gift for religion. And then, finally, they were assembling an army together to go to the Third Crusade, called by the Pope Urbano III. So he got together, he got his horse, he was going to join some more people on the army to go to the Third Crusade that was supposed to head to Egypt. And they were trying to convert the Sultan in Egypt to Christian, so holy war, right? And then that's when he was going there. when he was going to meet the army, he had a vision. And for us Spiritists, anything can, like any spirit can make you, if you are connected, see something, or could be on a dream. A book that I read, basically, this, what they call the vision, was a dream that he had. And that vision basically told him, you know what, go back to Assisi. You don't have to go there. We got work to do. We got some work to do. So, he came back. When the vision came, didn't tell him to do anything. Basically said, okay, don't go to war, go back to Assisi. But because he had that vision, everything started changing. And he started becoming even more religious. He started praying way more. And according to him, some of the friends say, okay, you don't go out with ladies anymore. I think you're in love. And he would respond, I'm in love with Lady Poverty for his father's dismay. You know, his father started thinking that he was acting really strange. He wasn't interested on the business anymore. He wasn't bringing anything to the business anymore. So, what was going on? So, the peak came when he was on a church that is called a San Damiano, and that's when the vision became clear. When the cross, that's what he saw, the cross talking to him and repeated 3 times to him, Francis, Francis, go and repair my house, which, as you can see, is fallen into ruins. So, according to what he read, he looked on the crucifix, and the crucifix said this 3 times to him. Well, as a Spiritist, we would understand this on a more, not a literal way. We have to build a house, but believe it or not, that's pretty much what he understood. You know, so what he did after that, that's when he decided, okay, everything has to change. So he started begging for money, and he got some merchandise from his father, sold it, and used the money to restore that specific church. And you can imagine how mad his father became. So his father started threatening him, and then became violent. And his father went and talked to the bishop and said, okay, my son is going nuts, you know, you need to save him, maybe he's got a demon or anything. That's when Francis came, and during that conversation with the bishop, Francis told his father, okay, I renounce my inheritance, I renounce my name, I renounce everything. My only father now is God. I even renounce those clothes that I'm wearing. So in front of everybody, he dressed down, became naked, gave his clothes to his father, and started walking. Oh, did I mention it was snowing? And according to what I read in some Spiritist book, he did that, and he left singing and smiling. That's naked. So someone that was there, they got some clothes that were on the floor, and they covered him, so wrapped him around, but it was not like a clothes that you wear. It was basically just like comforters. And that's how he had the idea, and that's pretty much what he wore for the rest of his life. But, okay, what happened to him? Why did he took this decision? Let's remember that Jesus asked him to rebuild his house that was falling to ruins. The church was, you know, swimming in gold. That's not exactly what Jesus wanted to do. So, we're gonna see how he came up with that. So for the first 2 years, basically he became a beggar, and he started rebuilding several of the churches. And what people said it was very impressive, he never complained, he was always in a good mood, always talking and always working, singing. So you see someone so certain of what he's doing, start getting followers. Some people say, okay, this guy is up to something. So he started getting followers. So why did he decide to leave everything and basically his life was dedicated to poverty. So he explained, that's his own explanation, that basically on the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, on the versicle 9, it's written, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you received, freely give. That's his part. Do not acquire gold or silver or copper for your money belts, or a bag for your journey, or even 2 coats, or sandals, or a staff, for the worker is worthy of his support. So, I take this. If you come here and you fix something on the floor, and then you bend all the way here, as you release, what's going to happen? It's going to come all the way here to go a couple of times, and then you're going to find balance, right? So it looks like the church was pulling all the way down here. We needed someone that would put all the way to the other way. So basically, his lesson is not like everybody has to be poor. But he showed that you don't have to be rich. Not everybody has to be rich. So he rescued the message from Jesus being extremely poor. Because before that, you would think that Jesus wanted you to be rich, to be the Pope, to be the richest person in Europe. Or at least what they called back then the world. Right? So, he wanted to bring the original message. Again, he was singing, walking around, and doing his work. He started getting followers. In 2 weeks, he had already 11 followers, helping him build the church and everything. They were dropping everything behind. Some very wealthy people. They would think, okay, what they're going to rebuild church? They would sell everything, use all their money to rebuild churches. That's what they thought that they were supposed to do. Well, I said, but the church had all the money. Yes, for the people. Not necessarily they were applying on work for the church or even on the buildings. If you go, of course, to Rome, the churches were fantastic, gold everywhere, but not exactly outside Rome. And that's one of the reasons why he wasn't born in Rome. According to the book, he chose Assisi to reincarnate because the spiritual mentor of that city was so evolved that it was the only one that could assist him and the other 200 that came with him on that mission. But Rome couldn't stand the message that he was going to bring. So with that, as he started having so many followers, he decided to found one order, a missionary order. And he went to the Vatican and he tried to talk to the Pope. That the Pope basically said, those beggars here? No, send them home, send them home. No, but this guy, everything that he says is great, because as he was getting close to Rome with his followers, everybody that would talk to him, they would say, oh my God, what this guy is saying, that makes sense. Even people that work for the church, they're all getting like hypnotized by his charisma, by his message. But the Pope didn't see him, so the Pope said, no. Poor and no, leave them. So some of the people, some of the Spiritist teachings, they said that basically what happened was the Pope was sleeping, and then he had a dream, and on that dream, it was proven that he was the Pope was the least Christian of all of them. And the Pope tried to explain why he has to keep the church together, so he has to build wars and things like that. And during the dream, people were telling him, no, that's not exactly. You want to know what you have to do to save the church? Yes. Tomorrow, you're going to send someone after Francis, and you're going to talk to him. That's all what we are asking you to do. So the Pope woke up. He believed that he dreamed with Jesus himself, which wasn't exactly the case. And on that part, a couple of books, they say that were different spirits that talked to the Pope. So he sent someone out after Francis, brought Francis, okay, explaining what you're doing. Francis explained, he's got disgust, but okay, they told me to do, so okay, you're officially now an order. Do you want to become a priest? Said no. I want to be a preacher. I just want to be able to talk about that, but I don't want to be ordained a priest. No. Franciscans, they're going to work and live the gospel based on that Matthew 10:9. Okay? If you're going to do that, you're officially an order now. And let them go. And so he started doing that. That's when Francis realized that not only him, but even his followers, they had the power already to start curing people. And well, we all love some magic or something like this. So when we know that someone has some healing power, the word spreads. You know, that's one of the weapons that we have to spread good news. So a lot of people started coming after him, and he started coming after everybody. He started, okay, after 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, he had already over 1,000 followers. So he started sending everybody, 2 Franciscans, 2 by 2, everywhere to spread the word about their order, including outside Europe. So some of them went to North Africa, some went to Asia. And when he was preaching one day at the church of San Damiano, again, São Damião in Portuguese, there was a very wealthy lady called Santa Clara, or Claire, that got hypnotized by his message. Some of the Spiritist book, they said that they were brothers, they were spiritual siblings, and she fell in love with him, but not on a sensual way. But that transformation happened extremely strong, and he understood that, okay, that's my arm to reach for the women. Because let's remember that we were talking about an orders of men. They will live in chastity, they will live in poverty. Oh, there are women in the road, right? So she would be the one that would rescue the church for the women. So he helped her opening her own order that became the Poor Clares, for women only. And some of, like, we could spend weeks here talking about the things that he did, but when the Crusades left to Egypt to try to convert by war the Sultan to Christianity, Francis went there and he talked to the Crusades and to the Sultan, and pretty much everything dissolved, everything stayed as was supposed to be before. The Sultan, with his own faith, the Crusades back, because there was nothing for them to do there in the name of the Christ. Interestingly enough, when he tried to go overseas twice, he almost died with shipwrecks. So he went back to the continent, to Europe. So he himself never left Europe. And when you read what happened, you think, oh, well, now he's going to go. But no, he didn't go. So some of you guys may have seen a statue or image of St. Francis with birds, things like this. Some people always associate him with animals or even the nature. And there's some interesting stories how that came along. How did he become associated with the animals? Some of the things is that when he was preaching, people say that even the birds would stop and it looks like they were listening to him. But he had a special way with the animals. So, one of the things that he did, he went to the city that they were being terrorized by a wolf. That wolf would attack people, would attack their chicken, would attack their lambs and everything. And they were trying to kill the wolf. And according to history, Francis went there, he went after the wolf in the woods, and people say that he spoke with the wolf, or he convinced the wolf that that's not the way to do things. He came back to the city and said, okay, you guys are going to feed the wolf. As long as you keep the wolf fed, you're not going to hurt anybody else. And history says that that worked. When we see who he was, even before becoming Francis, you understand that, yeah, that guy has, has the power, like a way more reincarnation that we had, so he was already way up here, so he could do things like this. As time passes, his influence within the church grew so much that people were talking about his work and what he would say all the time, and even ask him, what they should do with the church. And so he reorganized his order that became huge. He put more rules on things that were not still covered, and always emphasized the need of discipline, prayer, poverty, and chastity, because what they wanted to focus was on the gospel, on the message of Jesus. And then one day, 2 years before he died, he was praying so intensely that he received the stigmata. Does anyone know what the stigmata is? Eric?
Receiving the scars of Christ.
Pretty much, the wounds of Christ, he received that. So he was praying so intensely that when he looked, he had the wounds of Christ on him.
Wow.
I still don't understand exactly because of I'm so little, so small, exactly what that represented, but he showed that with that much faith, that's how much he could accomplish. He lived only 44 years. If you think some geniuses of the rolling, Mozart was a little over 30 years old when he died, and Francis lived only 44 years, and 800 years later, that's one that we still remember. For everything that he did, we see the Franciscans here and there. So some of his legacy, the order of the Franciscans and the clerics, they still exist. They help in hospitals, they help in schools. I went to a Franciscan school in Brazil, and interestingly enough, after 800 years, one pope chose to choose his papal name, Francis, for the first time in Europe. So the church is getting closer to the original message again, you know? And a lot of things that the new pope or the Catholic Church talks about, he goes back on the message from Francis. First, he doesn't wear gold, he doesn't live on the palace, he lives on a smaller house, so he shows that he understands what the message from Francis was. And the prayer associated to his name is still recited to this day, even outside the Catholic Church. If you Google for Centro Espírita Francisco de Assis, you're going to find over 1,000 in Brazil only. Here in the US, you're going to find some of them. So he's a figure that is very admired even within the Spiritism. And he's considered the greatest spirit to have reincarnated after Jesus. So you have Jesus on the top. The second one was him for everything that he did. And the way he could live the gospel message on its pure and real meaning. And it's interesting that a lot of people, including my brother, they pray for Friends of Assisi for their pets. You know, so as Fernando always reminds us, okay, let's go to the boss, you know. But some people, they associate him with the protector of the animals, you know, and even the nature. And he was the perfect example. That's important for us Spiritists, among other things, on how far charity can reach when performed honestly. He always used everything that he receives in the benefit of others. And he never complained about missing absolutely anything. Basically, he never complained. No one saw him ever mad or complaining about anything. Of course, he's a way higher hierarchy that we are here studying now on the Spirits book. You know, the Order of Spirits. We are down here, he's way up there. But he was born in flesh. And he showed that, yes, we can do, if we have discipline, you know, if we devote ourselves to doing good, we can do that. So let's take a look now on backstage. That's what, you know, is written that we can see. History told us about Francis of Assisi more what the incarnated people told us. Let's see what the spirits, they talk about us. Why did he come? Why did he need to come? So here's a quick question. Was the spirit of Francis of Assisi created better than the other ones?
No.
I don't think so, right? No, he can achieve that by his own merit. Like here in Spiritism, they don't think that God creates spirits differently. So no, he was created just like you were created. Was there a spiritual reason for him to reincarnate when he reincarnated?
Yes.
Yeah, our planetary governor said, okay, I came there, like 1,000 years ago, like brought my message, and now they are destroying it. But how could he do all this? How could he be that great? Like he was just born, he was already this huge spirit. So let's just remember the context that he came. Middle Ages, also called Dark Ages. The church was responsible to carry the teaching of the Christ, but deviated from that. Some of the things that we were doing, crusades was the Christian explanation of holy war. Cardinals and popes covered and swimming in gold. Instead of love, they would teach by fear, with the Inquisition, for instance. The church would mingle with politics, elect kings, and have enormous amounts of possessions, territories, land, real estate. I visited some places in Europe that they were like church states in the past. You know, I think this whole like county here, yeah, what did the church do with that? No, that was their state. So we don't understand why they would need that. And the worst of all, the famous Inquisition was already in place when that's the scenario. So Jesus needed someone that he really could trust completely to come and restore the message. It couldn't be just anyone or just, anytime. That time was there, things are bad, I'm gonna send someone to remember the law of love. So, a lot of Spiritist authors, including Divaldo Franco, they tell us, they explain to us, that huge spirit that came with the name of Francis of Assisi, his reincarnation before that was supposed to be his last one, He was one of the apostles of Christ. He was John. John the apostle. John, basically, on the book Dias Venturosos, the spirit of Amélia Rodrigues, through Divaldo Franco, informs that Francis of Assisi is John the Evangelist. All the apostles, they were important, of course, but we don't know much. There's not much history written about the other ones. There are only 2 apostles that, according to Divaldo, we know what happened afterwards. One of them is John, basically because he came again as Francis. And you're going to understand a little bit how big John was back then. So he was about 15 years old when he met Jesus. So he was the youngest of all the apostles. When Jesus started his public life, when Jesus died, John was 19 years old. He was the only one, that went with Jesus all the way to the cross, and he was sitting under the cross when Jesus was dying, on the side of Maria. And Jesus said, okay, Maria, this is your son now, this is your mother now. So he took care of Jesus' mother until she passed. He was the only one that didn't die. Not that people didn't try to, but he didn't die of a violent death. He was over 100 years old when he died. And he was the only one who died because he was old. All the other ones, they were killed. And as you're going to see, it's not like people didn't try to kill him. But he was the last one to say, no, still need you here, there's more to do. So, John, right after Jesus died, and if you guys are reading this great book on the book club called Paulo Estevam or Paul and Stephen, you're going to learn about the brothers of the way, or os irmãos do caminho. What was that? Basically, if you read this book, you're going to even understand where the name Christians came from. So, book club, everybody, let's read that book. So, John was the youngest one, but he was working in Jerusalem with Peter, with James, with even Felipe. They were basically working in the name of Jesus. Doing what? Getting people that were considered crazy, or were sick, or lepers, and treating these people. So that's how he started his life. He was 20, in his 20s when he was doing that. And as you know, Paul came, and then Peter disincarnated, and all the apostles, they were slowly being killed. They were all being persecuted by Rome because of the message. As we read the book, we can learn more about that. John himself, he got arrested a few times. But interestingly enough, when he was arrested, all the guards would gather around him and ask him questions and listen to what he was saying. So it was very hard to keep him with a guard for a long time, because even the boss of the guards, as they would come to, okay, tell me more about that. And then his boss would come. So they were moving John around. So they decided to move him to an island called Patmos. Was basically like the remains of a volcano, completely desertic, and they had basically the prison for him. And at some point, the guards started fighting among them because they wanted to go to the island to stay with him. They were very careful, conduct him, and they started calling the prisoner Father John. So the prisoner, they used to call him Pai João, right? So he explained to everybody, no, I'm happy to be here, because here I can teach. To anyone that comes here, I can teach. And always talking about Jesus, the life of Jesus. He didn't even write his gospel back then. He was still using the Gospel of Matthew when he was teaching those things. During that time, according to one of the books that I read, he even learned how to interact with the force of nature. Like make wind blow or make it rain. Not that he was using this to benefit the island or to scare people, because what I read, they show that he never used that around people, but it shows that he was so evolved that he even learned how to interact with the force of nature. Well, we'll get there. So, finally, the order came to kill him. And let me see if any one of you guys know this word in English. Caldeirão. How do you say that in English? I don't know either. I looked,
Yeah,
it's a big pot, this huge. And the order that came to kill him was that he was supposed to fry in one of those. So and when they came to read the order, the book that I read, if you guys watch that movie, The Green Mile, that they needed to kill, all the guards, they were crying when they needed to. That's the scene that I saw when I read that. Like all the guards, they were crying because they had to execute that. And John was explaining to them, that's your job, you have to do that, otherwise you're going to get in trouble, and you have a family, and you have everything. Do your job. So the guards, they said, okay. So they moved him to that. And now comes the part that is a little bit weird, and I needed to read this a few times. So, okay, they got the olive oil boiling, and they put John there.
Inside the oil?
Inside the oil. That's how he was supposed to be killed.
Wow.
For 2 weeks,
Oh, for one.
he was frying there.
Oh.
2 weeks later, they turn it down. He comes out and say, God bless you all.
No.
And then I said, oh, come on.
Wow.
I said, no, okay. That's for Sabah, that's way too much. So, let me read that again. So I read this book that we're going to show at the end, was written by a medium called João Nunes Maia, by the spirits of Mirames, which is a respected spirit. It has other good books. Okay, let me see exactly what he explains that happened back then. So, according to Mirames, he said, I know it's going to be difficult to understand that, but he needed a big action back then, because they needed to, Rome needed to leave John in peace so he could continue his work. It was the last one, and there was still work to do. So he couldn't die. So he explained that what happened was, when John was going there, they covered him in fluids, and he put him on a state that he would sleep for 2 weeks. So he was covered on a fluidic protection, abdomen, for the 2 weeks. Okay, as soon as he got out, he woke up, and they got this out. That's Spiritism. I believe
Was it
on
like
this explanation.
hibernating?
Kind of hibernating, but you would die hibernating unless you were covered on that when you're on boiling olive oil, right? So, basically what happened after that was that the soldiers that got him out, they said, okay, this guy doesn't die. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell Rome that he died, but we're going to move you from here somewhere else. And you're going to change your name. Because the ego is going to think that you died. So they moved him from Patmos to Ephesus. And according to the books, That's the name that they picked for him was Francis. So even when he was John, he later became Father Francis. But according to Rome, he had died. So after that, he moved to Ephesus, and as you read about John in Ephesus, and we have that on the poem Stephen, and we have that also on the Acts of the Apostles on the Bible. That's where he wrote his gospel when he was already over 100 years old. That's where he wrote the Apocalypse there as well, and that's where he disincarnated. But that's where he wrote also the epistles from John that were letters to the churches that needed clarifying. So he was the last one. Think about that. He was with Christ since when he was 15 years old. He lived over 100 years old. He kind of died, but didn't. So he was already big enough. So he was considered the most special apostle to Christ. And he went all the way to the cross. So the Christianity, not Jesus, but the Christianity was already 1,000 years old. And the message was going south, was really losing the meaning. And according to history, what happened was that John said, okay, Jesus, I'm going to go there, fix it, and I'm going to need a lot of help. So there were about 200 spirits that reincarnated with him to help him on this mission. That's how so easily he got followers as well. 2 of those spirits were Claire and Anthony. Who was Anthony, who became Saint Antonio? He was born in Portugal, in Lisbon, but he, as he became a priest, he moved to Italy, and he was associated to the city of Padua, and he was very active. He was a very, just like St. Augustine, he had a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge about the church and about the gospel, and he met Francis, and he became a friar. So he became one of the ones on the order of Francis. Some of the interesting facts about the life of Francis that is interesting to the Spiritists was that his father, the father of Anthony, he was being accused in Rome of a crime that he didn't commit. And then Anthony was, if I'm not mistaken, in Spain when his father was being accused. So while he was in Spain, he learned that that thing was happening. So he sat by himself, he started praying, and he showed up there on his father's trial. And he explained that actually it wasn't his father, was this other person that did this for this reason, this other reason, this other reason. And the person confessed in there. So there's a name for it, but usually you're gonna, on Spiritism, when you have like a apparition like this, I forgot the name in English now.
Is it like a transportation?
Was something like that, but usually that happens to disincarnated spirits. But Anthony was one of the 200, so he was able to do that while still incarnated.
Yeah.
So he became to like his left.
Desdobramento.
Desdobramento, that's right. That's right. So he was able to do that. He was one of the 2 ones. And so was Mrs. Pica, Burlemont, that was Francis' mother. She accepted that. If you think about like 50 years ago, the man was already rude to the women, like the father, mainly Latino blood, you know. Imagine 1,000 years ago, right? It was even worse. So when John's mother had the dream that she was going to conceive and there's going to be someone special, and she picked the name John because that's what her intuition came. So she picked the name Giovanni and put on his son. His father said, nah, gonna be Francesco. So decided to call him Francesco. Interestingly enough, there were the 2 names of John when he was the evangelist as well. So the first book, the Spirit's book, only, I don't even know how to pronounce that, prolegomena, the prologue, like on the first chapter, what explains what this book is. The spirits that signed the Spirit's book, the first one, the very first one, if you right here, it's going to say John the Evangelist. So he got involved for us to be where we are right now. If I get the Spiritist book here, and then we open, of course, there's the preface, and then the prologue. So as I go to the preface again, revised edition, prologue, where we have the drawing with the. So as we finish here, the spirits. Oh, the very first one, John the Evangelist, St. Augustine, St. Vincent de Paul, St. Louis, Socrates, and so on. But there's our friend that we're talking about him today. So during the 1950s in Brazil, Francis became very active, sending a lot of messages to our important mediums and signing as Francis. And some of them are really beautiful that I want to share with you guys. So through Chico Xavier, he sent a message to Pietro Ubaldi, and that was in 17 August 1951. But at the very end, basically what it says is, the gospel is an eternal code. Jesus is our invincible master. Now, it's still the night with thunder and shadows. It's scaring, torturing, and destroying. However, Christ reigns, and tomorrow we will contemplate the celestial awakening. In Portuguese, it sounds better. That's the best that I could translate to English. And this was that gave me goosebumps when I read, because think about this: Francis of Assisi sent a message to Divaldo through Chico Xavier. We're talking about very serious thing when Divaldo was only 23 years old. And I got the messages here, and I wanted to print them to give to you guys, and I couldn't, but I can share with you guys by email. You can read. It's a very nice message. He sent two messages. The first with through Chico Xavier, the second one through Pedro Ubaldi. And the end of the first message is very interesting. Here is in Portuguese. I have this also in English, but let me read on both languages if you guys allow me. Não nos achamos reunidos, por acaso, depois de 4 séculos de civilização baiana e brasileira. Temos compromissos. Não nos congregamos ali agora pela primeira vez. O tempo compassivo agente da infinita bondade nos guarda de novo sob sua custódia, a fim de nos desdobrarmos com seu concurso em ação intensiva na tarefa do esclarecimento e da caridade. E último parágrafo. Neste propósito, e formulando votos para que nos unamos cada vez mais na obra cristã que o Espiritismo nos descerra, abraça a ti com muito carinho o velho companheiro.
Wow.
Velho companheiro.
Guys, like Chico Xavier, Divaldo, we are living a time that we have these spirits. They are friends with Francis. So in English, the man that actually come up with that message was, we are not united by chance after 4 centuries of Baiana and Brazilian civilizations. Unless there's a better translation for Baiana. No? Okay, and Brazilian civilizations. We have a work to do. We do not gather here for the first time. Time is the agent of the infinite goodness, keeps us again under his custody, so we can develop in intensive action in the task of clarification and charity. With this purpose, and so that we can unite even more in the Christian work, which the Spiritism opens up to us, embraces you with a lot of love, this old friend. That's strong, right? Okay, so this is the final chapter. We're going to talk about this prayer that is called the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Senhor, fazei de mim instrumento de vossa paz, or Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Interesting enough, history says it wasn't Francis who wrote that prayer, even though people associate to him. One of the source that I read, I found very interesting. They said that it was a beautiful prayer, anonymous, but it was printed on those santinhos, on one of those flyers. They had a picture of St. Francis. So they associated the prayer of St. Francis. And they published that, originally written in French. And they published that on a Catholic French magazine, very close to the Second World War, when, things were rough. So any hope that people could get, It would get Francis, France, you know, that helps. So in French, Fernanda, you want to?
Seigneur, faites de moi un instrument de votre paix.
Beautiful, right? And after it was first published, so there's nothing of this prayer before 1912, only after that. In the US, there's no records of this prayer before 1927. But during the World War II, it was distributed even among the soldiers, a specific prayer. Think about the Second World War making me a channel for peace. So there was, I think there was someone acting upon that. So, in the Spiritist, why can't we say that this prayer wasn't actually dictated by him? Right? To this anonymous spirit. They associated with his name. I don't think that's by chance. You know? So, maybe even if it wasn't him who dictated that, he inspired that prayer to come out so beautiful that it is. But interesting enough, there is an actual prayer that he wrote throughout his life. That was actually one of the things that he was singing. And what I find really beautiful about that is the way he refers to the brother sun, mother earth, sister water, brother fire. All these things only make sense on the Latin languages where you have genders. And it's funny because if you translate this to German, the sun is female, it's feminine, and the moon is male, so would be more like a sister sun and brother moon. But you know, because Portuguese comes from Latin, this makes sense for us. But to English, where there's such a thing as gender for things. But I find it really beautiful the way he puts that. So one of the paragraphs that I got here, it says, "Happy those who endure in peace, for by you, Most High, they will be crowned. Who endure in peace. Be praised, my Lord, through our sister bodily death." He mentioned bodily death. So that's the only death that he could mention. From whose embrace no living person can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Happy those she finds doing your most holy will. The second death can do no harm to them. And that's the prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi in English. And I want to show this on a special way. So you guys could give me just 5 minutes. Make me a channel of your peace. When there is hatred, let me bring your love. There is injuries, your pardon, Lord. When there is doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. When there is despair in life, let me bring hope. There is darkness, holy light. When there is sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. In giving ourselves we receive.
claim that we're born to the eternal life. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much you be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel